The Yan family had always worn their cruelty like a tailored suit, pressed, presentable, and impossible to see for what it truly was. And when Ethan Yan, the eldest son and rightful heir to a steel empire worth 400 billion, was dragged out of the family villa on a Tuesday morning by two hired security guards, while his stepmother Claire Yan watched from the second-floor balcony with a champagne flute in one hand and a legal document in the other, the look on her face was not triumph so much as boredom, the particular boredom of a woman who had been planning something for 6 years and found the execution disappointingly simple. The family lawyer, a thin, nervous man named Dewey who had served Ethan's biological father for 2 decades and apparently felt no loyalty whatsoever to the dead man's children, had already transferred 60% of the company shares before Ethan's bag even hit the pavement. Not one cousin, not one uncle, not a single person who had eaten at that table and called this boy family said one word. Foolish people, all of them. Too short-sighted to understand what they had just discarded. Ethan did not go home that night because there was no home to go to. So he walked, and somewhere on the rain-slicked overpass above the Third Ring Expressway, with trucks thundering below and the city glittering indifferently in the distance, he stopped walking and looked down. And that is when a small child, 4 years old, clutching a stuffed rabbit, having somehow slipped past a broken railing, went over the edge. Ethan moved without thinking. He caught her. He went over instead. The fall lasted exactly 2 seconds, and then there was nothing. And then, precisely where nothing should have remained, a cold mechanical voice carved itself into the silence with the following announcement. System binding complete. Host identity confirmed. Ethan Yan. Initiating reward transfer. Balance Cree. Dited 500 billion. Skill unlocked. Sovereign Eye. Granting full biological, financial, and psychological profile scanning of any target within 100 meters. Skill unlocked. Iron Sovereign Fist. Combat multiplier rated at 1 versus 200. Secondary skill unlocked. Fortune Mirror, allowing hosts to predict opponents' physical vulnerabilities based on real-time biometric data. Ethan opened his eyes on wet asphalt. A passing motorcyclist swerved and screamed something unpleasant. The child was sitting 3 meters away, crying but breathing. Above him, the overpass lights blurred and sharpened, and Ethan felt something in his chest that was not pain, it was power, dense and cold and entirely new, running from his sternum to the ends of his fingers like a current that had always been there and had simply been waiting for the correct switch. He stood up. He straightened his jacket. He walked. The hospital where the child's mother was notified, a woman named Director Shen of Shen Capital Group, net worth 960 billion, age 27, calm under pressure, and currently the most dangerous non-combat individual within a 4-kilometer radius, sent 3 black SUVs to the scene within 8 minutes. And when Director Shen herself stepped out, her composure cracked for exactly 4 seconds when she saw her niece sitting unhurt on the curb, and then it sealed itself back up again like water closing over a stone. She offered Ethan anything. The phrase she used was anything at all, without limit. The Sovereign Eye activated without effort, and her full profile materialized across his vision like a screen he had not asked to open, confirming the 960 billion, confirming the position, confirming one additional detail that the numbers alone could never have communicated. This was a woman who kept her word. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said simply that there was no need, and he walked away into the rain, which was rude by conventional standards, but was in fact the single most interesting thing that had happened to Director Shen in 4 years, and she knew it immediately, which is why she turned to her assistant before the sound of his footsteps had faded and gave the order to find everything there was to find about him within the next 10 minutes. Meanwhile, back at the Yan family villa, things were going sideways in a manner that Claire Yan had not anticipated. Because a man named Boss Dao, head of the Long Shark lending operation, holder of a 58 billion debt that Claire had racked up through 6 years of embezzlement from the very company she had just stolen, had arrived with 4 associates, all of them carrying lengths of steel pipe, which is a fairly conventional announcement of intent. And Claire, who 1 hour ago had been imperious and untouchable, was now on her knees on the marble floor with a handprint forming red across her cheekbone, promising things she could not deliver to a man who was rapidly losing patience. That was the scene Ethan walked into. He surveyed it without surprise. He crossed directly to the sea, entered of the room, ignored everyone present, retrieved the purple sandalwood keepsake box his mother had left behind, and tucked it under his arm. Boss Dao scanned this young man. No expensive clothes, no visible weapons, entirely too calm, and made the miscalculation that arrogant men always make when they encounter composure they cannot explain. Hold him, Boss Dao said. If he does not sign the transfer papers in the next 5 minutes, remove a finger. The Sovereign Eye lit up without prompting. Target, Dao Mingshan. Combat rating 61. Known vulnerability acute cardiac arrhythmia, triggered nightly at exactly midnight, managed privately, disclosed to no one. Ethan turned. His voice was quiet enough that it required absolute silence to hear, which the room immediately provided. That chest pain you get every night at exactly 12, he said, looking directly at Boss Dow, has a name. Do you want to know it, or would you prefer your men keep moving? The steel pipes stopped moving. Boss Dow's hand, already raised, did not complete its arc. His subordinates exchanged looks that communicated collectively that they had not signed up for this particular variety of problem. One of them lunged anyway, the type of foolish loyalty that gets people hurt. And Ethan turned, exhaled once, and delivered a single roundhouse kick that was not fast so much as geometrically inevitable. Crash. The man traveled 11 feet sideways and met the wall with a sound that ended the discussion entirely, and the remaining three stepped back in unison, and the room was very quiet. And Claire Yan, watching from the floor, began to understand, slowly, then all at once, that the young man she had spent 6 years destroying had come home as something she had no framework for.